Here we go.
Are we on?
All right. Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Non-PC Housing.
Woo-hoo.
Cheers, ladies.
Well, thank
Here
you,
we
ladies.
are, episode 3. Yes, episode
Episode
3.
3.
So we're going to do a little introduction so we kind of get an idea. Our topic was changes are needed, and so what changes are needed? On today's episode, we're going to talk about and dig into several areas to show fractures, schisms, downright failures to get people in our community and everywhere the funds and tools they need to make real positive changes. And meaningful housing, by the way. We're not going to solve all this today, of course. It'll probably take us several episodes to do so, and we're kind of already anticipating the next episode in August will also be about this as we dig further, right? And we want to have episodes that open the door to conversations with everyone involved from the top down. Uncomfortable conversations, which is why we're non-PC housing. But we'll get there. By there, I mean real solutions and real suggestions for real solutions. We can't pick up the ball and run with it by ourselves, but we can offer the ball and support to those who can, who have the wherewithal, who have the knowledge base, the skill sets, the ears of government and the public to carry the ball of change to those who will listen and act to improve our human condition here. And so we're going to start off with Rebecca.
Thank you. So one of the things that we've been talking about is how difficult it is for the local people to actually maintain their housing in the town. And what's happening in our town, and I think across the nation, is people are moving in and buying up a lot of the multifamilies and kicking the residents out. And I know 3 buildings right now where people have come in, purchased these buildings, and the tenants have to leave and find new housing somewhere. And I quite often ask them, like, well, dude, why didn't you just buy the house? You know, why I have 3 buildings, why don't you just buy the house? Well, one, the houses sell within 7 days. They're off the market within 7 days. Mm-hmm. So they're getting listed, and we have people from out of state coming in and just buying them up really quick. And typically what they want, they're asking the seller to evict all the tenants so they can come in and live in the house and renovate it. And a lot of these people are below middle income. Middle income right now, like we discussed, is $51,000 to $155,000. So that's right. 2 couples that need to make anywhere from $50,000 to $150,000 to be able to afford to buy a house potentially. Most of the people that are living in Rockingham right now, in Bellows Falls specifically, that are used to renting for $650 a month. Yep. And get some heat assistance, or maybe heat is included, can't shell out what is needed for a down payment. So what's happening is these people are blindsided. They have no idea that this is happening. They're living in their apartment, they're minding their own business, all of a sudden everything's being sold. They're not tuned into housing like we are. Mm-hmm. They're not tuned into the fact that there's no place to rent. So I literally had 5 people contact me as a landlord in the last 4 weeks saying, I need a 3-bedroom. I need a 2-bedroom. I have to be out in a month. I have to be out by September 1st. And I say to them, why didn't you buy the house? Well, I don't have the money. I don't have the funds to buy a house. And it would cost somebody that's probably making between 2 people $50,000. So you've got a woman that might be working in the human service agency type thing, that Sevka or HCRS, that's maybe making $30,000. Her husband's probably working at what is that? A current Hatton or something like that. They might be making 50 grand between the two of us. Two of them, maybe 60. Now they have 2 kids. You know, one family has 2 kids and a mother-in-law living in there, so the expenses are really high. To have to be able to buy a $250,000 home in Bellows Falls right now, which is ludicrous, because our houses were going for 75 to 150. They're now at 175 to $250,000.
Right. So that's the reality.
They're
Up 100%. The houses in Bellows Falls, believe it or not, are up 100%. So it's a tailwind. The people have no idea what's happening. They would have to, for a family like that, they would have to come up with 20% down on 250. So there's 50 grand right there. And then the closing cost is 10. Banks don't roll the close on a brand new home.
10%.
They don't roll the closing cost in.
Right.
So now they're looking at $60,000.
Who has that?
Who has $60,000
especially as a renter?
As a renter,
Yeah.
tucked aside, waiting to buy a home.
Yep.
And we have all these great programs that are tucked away and silent and private that we've not marketed to help people. Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust has this whole, hey, we'll teach you how to be a landlord. You know, we'll give you money, we'll set you up, we'll pay the down payment. But that's what, a 4 or 5 month process?
Right. In the meantime,
And it's a long process. So for these people that are getting notified, hey, I'm putting the house on the market, do you want to buy it? Give me 5 months to educate
And they're
myself.
saying, no, thanks.
No, you've
The
got 5
landlord's like,
days.
no, we're done. You've got 5 days. Thank you.
Highest bidder takes it.
Yeah,
And
you've
you have
got
30
5
days to get out.
And oh, by the way, if you don't have the money or the means or the funds or the expertise or the education, you need to move.
Yep.
So we have a really good family. He's a local guy that's been in town. I'm not going to say his name.
Right.
2 kids, the wife, the mother-in-law,
Huh.
living on Hapgood Extension. He contacted me. He needs to find a place.
Wow.
He needs to find a place. He can't find anything in Bellows Falls. As people know, it's very difficult right now to find rentals in Bellows Falls, especially a 3-bedroom or a 2-bedroom. He's moving us out of town. He's heading to Springfield or Putney or Brattleboro. So we just lost like a really good person whose family has contributed to this community for a long time.
2 people in the school system who are now
right.
leaving too.
They're leaving too, and
they're not the only family.
No.
they're not.
Because I
They're
know
not.
of another one.
I
Great
had,
family moved to Charlestown.
Yep, I had 4 people that have moved out. The other thing, just it kind of off topic, 21 Henry Street,
Yep.
12 units. All of those people have either gone to Rutland or Springfield,
Yep.
so they're out
Okay.
of the community
All out of
now.
the community. That included
There's-
at least one
there's-
family in
yep.
there with kids from
Yeah,
high school.
there's 3 I think that are still in there that are getting evicted and they can't find a place.
Yeah.
And we have one woman there that Abenaki descent,
Oh, yeah.
and she can't find a place in Bellows Falls. So she might have her only other option is a hotel in Brattleboro. But that's off topic. So the topic here is how do people in our community that want to buy houses, especially like a multi-family house that would help offset the mortgage, afford it?
Yeah.
You can't.
And
On the
I want to be
wages,
clear on your topic that we're talking about middle income is actually the working poor.
yeah.
These are people who are working, both of them,
I mean,
2
you
jobs,
know-
maybe more, because, sometimes you double up based upon what you can do.
Yeah.
Day and night, you see each other at the toothbrush stand. That's about it. And they're the working poor because they don't get any assistance. There aren't any programs for them, and they can't get into a home because they just can't save enough money to do that.
Yep.
If you don't have relatives that are going to give you a gift
Right.
of cash, say
Right.
$20,000 or more, you just said 50 grand, they are never going to get into a home.
No. And I asked my real estate agent, I said, why didn't this tenant buy this house? Now he has to get evicted and vacate and find a place. And she's like, he just doesn't have the funds. It's too expensive. The down payment is too expensive. And the house didn't qualify for FHA, which
Okay.
it needs to be in
Yes, it has to be.
pristine
It has to be
condition.
a turnkey ready.
Turnkey, pristine, and they're just not.
Yep.
But people from out of state are thinking $250 for a dilapidated house in Bellows Falls, even though it has some historic features, is worth it.
Right, and usually they have cash or something like that. They can just plop it down.
Yep.
We can't. No,
So-
people here can't do that.
So we're losing some of our local citizens because of this housing crunch.
Yeah.
And
winding up
this I want to just mention because changes are needed, and that was where our little spin the
Yep.
wheel. We didn't bring the wheel today.
No, not today
Because we know we're
kind of
gonna
think we're going to
keep
stick on this one
talking
next
about
one too.
this.
There'll be more information once we've done this. So
Yeah.
for sure.
So that's kind of a little bit on the housing crisis from my neck of the woods. Of I've got 4 or 5 people calling me in a panic saying I need to be out in the month, and my attitude is like, why the hell didn't you buy the fucking place? Oops, excuse me, but
We're not
just
PC.
buy
So
the
those
friggin'
things can
house,
slip out.
guy.
Yeah.
Be the landlord. And I said this to him, and he's like, oh, okay. It's like an afterthought. So, our people that are local, they need to start buying some of these places.
Yeah, and they
And
have a
supporting
permanent place to live.
themselves. Yeah.
And so how do we help them? How do we make sure that they know there's programs out there?
Right.
Well, and you yourself are part of a program right now,
Right,
which
right.
isn't getting diddly for advertising, really.
Yep.
So you go tell
So
right
we
now.
have in Bells Falls, the taxpayers have set aside hundreds of thousands of dollars for businesses. And we have 2 funds. We have the revolving loan fund, which if you decided to buy a multifamily, they treat it like a business. You can set it up as an LLC, you can treat it like a business, and they will give you can go to the revolving loan fund in Bells Falls and basically ask for the down payment. And you can have that 50 grand or that 40 grand or whatever you need to purchase that multifamily. I would suggest that you do it in advance and go ahead and start looking for multifamilies to buy and have the cash set aside. But we also have programs for housing preservation that if you're already in a building that you can use some of those funds to preserve that housing. But you can treat your domain, your domicile, where you're living, as a business, and that qualifies for the revolving loan fund to get a loan to purchase the building. So you don't have to worry about coming up with $30 or $40 or $50,000 to put down. You can come to the revolving loan fund, treat it like a business, and purchase that piece of property. But no one knows about this. No one knows the steps to do that.
So we're telling them.
We also, right, so that's Gary Fox at the town office, the development director, revolving loan fund, Bells Falls revolving loan fund. You also have Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust that has a lot of programs for home buyers that can be a little daunting. It can take some time, but if you're willing to put in the time and the energy and go through the process. There was a woman that her down payment was $80,000 for a single family home. She went through the program.
Wow.
They gave her $80,000 to buy this house.
Wow.
And what does she have to pay back?
Nothing.
Less than.
No. That was a grant. Here's
The Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust?
Yes, here's $80,000.
Wow.
Single woman buying a single family home. She's not supporting any other people. It's
Right.
not like she bought a multifamily. She bought a single family home, and Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust gave her $80,000 to buy that house.
Okay.
So no money out of pocket.
Although I'd like to understand better how they would, a single person.
a single
that.
person.
Yeah.
We would have to delve into that, and I can
Wow.
bring that maybe to the next meeting.
Yeah, it'd be worth
because
knowing.
I know the person that sold the house.
Yeah.
I know the seller, and I know Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust.
Okay.
So,
And the buyer, yeah.
but how does a single woman whose kids aren't living with her
Right.
get $80,000 to buy this property?
Yeah.
So what they do
But
is
now we have a
what
homeowner
they-
in that
what-
property that
what they-
wasn't.
yeah,
before.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. But
Yeah.
we're still losing people who are getting kicked out of their apartments. So I think what they do is they take the land value
Yeah.
and they own the land.
Okay.
So they
Oh,
own
Wyndham
the
Windsor Housing
land.
Trust owns
Yeah.
the land. That's right. I forgot.
So
So if she
here's the land
sells,
value.
they.
Yeah.
So that's a special
So-
program. So you
Yes.
need to really look at that
Yep.
if you're considering using Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust.
Right.
Yeah. I'm going to get into that when I get into my part. Anyway.
Yes. So there are programs out there. There are programs out there for everyone to start looking at and planning the purchase of either a single family home or multifamily. I live in a multifamily. I have multifamilies. I'm all about that. If you want to reach out to me, I will help anybody that wants to purchase a multifamily home. I'll do whatever I can. I'll find whatever grant programs are out there. I'm even thinking about subsidizing people to help them along, and that's another future topic. To get especially single people with children into a house that actually is a cash cow. So there you go. That's my spiel.
That's your spiel. You want to show that? Put that flyer up so maybe the camera might see.
Oh
it?
yeah. So I don't know if you can see this, but it does pay.
Maybe the camera.
It does pay to be a landlord in Rockingham. So there's so many grant programs out there right now through the Housing Trust and through the town of Rockingham where grant money, what people don't know is free money. It's free. It's free. Here's $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 to renovate, to help purchase, whatever you need to do. So there's programs out there, Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust and the Rockingham Revolving Loan Fund. Check it out and give us a call.
Great.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Exactly. So my piece today is about the problems with the entire spectrum. I think that somebody outside there can put up the flyer. It's a tools and funding paths. I wanted to kind of show the trickle down process. There you go. You can see it on camera. And this is just to show where our monies are coming from and the tools that we're able to use. Remember, federal government has a lot of restrictions and availabilities, and some of it gets down to the local level, and they allow us some opportunities to do housing and issues like that ourselves. But a lot of that and the funding itself goes down to the state legislature. It gets down to the possibility of what the Attorney General and Secretary of State have some input there. Legislature makes laws, and the Senate and Representatives pass bills or they don't. And a lot of my concern is the tough stuff that really would give us more tools, and I'm talking about whether you're a tenant or a landowner, are not necessarily passed. And they go on to another session, and then we hope for the best, and we try to make some of us will go up there and make testimony to see if we can make these things move, and they don't necessarily. But bills passed, and the funding that goes with them goes down to things like the regional commissions, which we have the Wyndham Regional Commission here in this part of Vermont. There's local governments, as in municipalities, Rockingham, Bellows Falls, Saxons River, right here. Our representatives bring down that stuff too, along with the Senate, down to nonprofits, of which we have a plethora. And a choking amount of nonprofits. The money and the restrictions on how the money can get spent and who is qualified goes down to them. Health administration is also dictated by the feds and Vermont state. And as well as our zoning bylaws and the administration of those, and our police and fire, who can be restrictive or non, based upon what these particular laws are. And that has to do with what you can build, what you can't build, where you can put something, where you can park. Just like, you probably had plenty of these things happen to you yourself. We get down to what's left, to single-family homes, owner-occupied tenancy, which means homes such as Rebecca was just talking about, with someone owns the building but lives in part of the house, and the rest of the house has additional tenants, and then off-site landlords, of which we have, unfortunately, too many, even just in our community. And now at the bottom you have tenants. And see, there's no strings attached to those because the rest of the money evaporates. The majority of assistance and help goes into the pockets of the mid-level, which is the regional commissions, the local government, and nonprofit organizations who dictate how the money gets distributed to you, the person who needs it. The reality is, I think there's too many strings. I have an idea about flipping it on its head, because I said, do the tools and the funding get down here? Most of you probably say no. Do they work for us? Most of you probably say no. Is a delivery method effective? That's a definite no. All the applications, even including, I'm sorry, but Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust, SEVCA, let me see, who else could I list? There's just so many of them that we have in our own area.
Housing authorities.
Go back up to the Vermont Housing Authority and others with their requirements on how the money gets distributed. Instead of giving the money directly to us, the money goes to those who need it. I'm not saying I do, but I'm saying for those who need it in our community. It goes through these agencies, and it has to go through them in order to get to you, and most of it goes in their pocket. Nonprofit organizations make money, but it goes in their pocket. And then they prove their reason for being, their raison d'etre, by saying how many people they helped. But they don't tell you exactly what they did to help them and how they helped them. I mean, the number of people, they could use a ticker that says how many people came in the door, but not necessarily who got anything.
Well, I have applied for many, many grants at Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust.
Yeah.
Because I know how to do it.
Okay,
My
yes,
grant
have
background,
practice.
I have practice, I know how to do it, and they've cut me off. They've said, you know what, you have enough right now, so even though you're applying, you need this work, and you're really good at it, we're not going to fund you. So
How's that a good reason?
They make a decision internally of who they're going to fund. They would rather keep the money in the coffers
Yeah.
than fund somebody that knows how to access the money. So when you talk about like the administration within these organizations, they're like, oh, she's had enough. Let's not give her any more money. So if I took a tenant
Yeah.
or 10 tenants and said,
Walk
this
them
is
through the process.
this is how you do it, would they be cut off? I don't know. But
Maybe if
we could
maybe
try
if
it.
those organizations didn't know you were doing that.
They didn't know I was doing it.
But I can tell you, through my own family experience, number one, I got my house without any help from any of these organizations. They didn't want to help me. I'm middle income. I had to come up with $22,000 to buy my house. I did. I had to scrabble. I had to go through a possible losing my house because I couldn't come up with the money until I came up with the money. There was no one out there. I needed to get my electrical system in my house changed because it was all knob and tube. Maybe there was maybe 2% was Romex. But I couldn't get any help from SEFCA. They said, I'm not helping you insulate as long as you've got $30,000 worth of electrical help you need. We're not going to help you. So there was no help for me in that. And okay, we got by. Unfortunately, the house burned. And then we got all new Romex. My granddaughter, Shay, has a place of her own. She has a tenant, or is it 2 floors? Maybe it's 1 tenant. So she's doing the dream that you're talking about.
Yep.
She did not get this kind of assistance. My son and his wife had to leave our community with their children and finally found a house that they could buy in Springfield without the help of SEPCA, without the help of Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust, and without any kind of help except for VHA. They got a VHA loan. They qualified on their own without the classes, which, by the way, they took a few years ago and were very depressed and just dropped out of the whole scene until they got back up to it. And they got the home on their own, but they didn't want to leave our community and they had no choice.
Yeah.
On the other hand, there's one other, I was trying to think, who else? There was one other situation just like this. So needing that help becomes so onerous and so embarrassing and so upsetting and so deep. Dig up this record, dig up that record, dig up this record. It's just, it's difficult for people to get the things that they need, and they're withholding that money. The money that the feds and the state of Vermont have allowed to be allocated to people who need it, who qualify, but the reality is they determine it's nonprofits, local government, and regional commissions that determine who qualifies.
And that money
Determine that.
we talked about in here, this money goes to big projects, and then a pittance,
tiny little pittance,
tiny pittance finally singles down to us.
To a few people.
So we're talking big community development block grant projects.
Right, it's like when
for
the
housing.
housing trust is eating up a bunch that
like
individual homeowners could
units
use.
that are going in at that, down the road and stuff like that. The big developments, that's where a lot of that money goes. When if it's siphoned down into the towns to the tenants that could actually buy local.
I know.
Buy,
And I'm thinking, there are no
buy your food local, buy your house
There
local.
are no classes. That's an idea of change. That's an idea that you have, which is teaching individual tenants, people who are tenants, how to buy, how to be a landlord, how to handle their property, how to take care of it in such a way as they're not killing themselves. And that is that's a program that no nonprofit is giving,
Right.
or
No.
nor regional commissions, nor local
you
government,
know why?
nor zoning bylaws, nothing of that.
You will own nothing and be happy. They don't want, and I'm going off here, they don't want the local people supporting themselves. They want the local people to have to rely on them.
But that's
the
what our
government
community lives on. The
I
tenant,
know.
people who are tenants, a lot of them, a majority of them, are people who work here. They support our community. They are putting their monies here.
Right.
They are.
And
They're supporting you who needs your cup of coffee. They're supporting you
Right.
who needs your high-end dinner or whatever it is. They're doing that because they're here. But you're kicking them out of the community. I'm talking
Right.
about the upper
No.
income
Right.
levels. They're kicking them out of the community because there's nothing here for them. You're squeezing them out of our community.
Right. So instead of having an organization come in and say, you can stay in your community, buy a house, be a landlord, be a homeowner, whatever you want to do, here are the resources.
You're
right.
Nonprofit all set up right there.
I do, yeah.
You're
no, I know.
proving yourself. You all
Yeah.
work and you love this
Yeah.
community and we want you,
You
to
wanna do
stay
it, yeah.
and this is how we're going to help.
And one of the early
That's-
conversations that you and I had was about starting a micro organization
Yes.
that gave small loans to people that needed to work their way up. So it could
Yep.
also include classroom time and stuff like that
Yep.
in order to get them there. And because you know the market and you know all these people and a lot of the properties that are for sale and what
Right.
needs to be done.
The tax sales that are coming up.
Exactly, tax sales that are coming up. All these things would be a plus to help motivate them and get them into their own place, where
Right.
they also not only are they providing a foundation for their rest of their lives, they're also providing housing for somebody else.
Right.
So
They have an
it's
advantage.
a great idea, and we really should move
They
forward with that.
They have an advantage.
I can
yeah.
give you my microloans
Okay.
to start your microloan
Yeah.
business.
But people need to know. I have 4 buildings, and I offered one of my tenants, each of them my building, and they all said, "I don't know how to be a landlord." I'll teach you how to be a landlord.
Yeah,
It's,
but,
it's
you
human
need to
compassion.
Give more
is
structure,
personal.
though. You need some
A
form
lot
of
of
class.
structure.
Yeah.
But there's also programs that you were talking about to develop your property.
Mm-hmm.
Turn your carriage barn or your garage into a
Into a
housing
housing.
unit. Get
I mean, first of all, they're cute as hell.
Get additional income. Do an Airbnb. Do an in-law apartment.
The accessory dwelling
There's
units.
yeah.
So I'll talk about that.
So, and I'm pretty much done with it, except for my last thing. Here's an idea for change. I would like to treat this whole money cycle so top down. I would like to have it bottom up. I think that we should pull a Biden. President Biden took money that was printed and available as it is from the federal and state governments and gave it to individuals who needed it with much fewer qualifications than is required by every nonprofit that I'm aware of. I think that would be a way to actually make the money work harder, and get more benefit.
Yep.
They don't trust it, and that's the problem. See, the problem is lack of trust. They don't trust the community to do the right thing with funds.
But we have a revolving loan fund, and we have a housing committee that is doling out money. So the town already has a structure set up to get that flow of money in, and then have the tenants come and apply for that if we want to go that route.
And I would like to see what I'm sure. Oh, by the way, applications for things like the revolving loan fund are on rockinghamvt.org. You can find them yourself, and I think by the next episode, I'm going to be pulling them
Yep.
and looking at what's wrong with them.
Yeah, we're going over that.
Because there's definitely something wrong with them because not enough people know about it, for one. So marketing is nil to almost impossible. So another reason why we're doing this. If you have further questions, make sure to contact us at nonpchousing@gmail.com, and we'll answer questions if you don't get it with what we're talking about now. I think I've covered my piece.
I just want to mention something about the bottom up.
Yep.
And this was something that I thought of before we started getting stimulus checks, the whole bailout of the millionaires. Those people don't spend money. We know that they don't spend money. That's why they're
They
still
invest it.
rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You give money to us, guess what we do? We
Spend it.
spend it.
And we spend it
And
in
that's
our
what
community.
we did over COVID. Yeah.
Oh, that would
We
take me
shopped
to one
local.
more thing, which is, unfortunately, I'm going to say it. Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust, using a construction company that is not in Vermont. So here we are, just up the street. from that project, that giant multi-million-dollar project, and we're using an out-of-state, New Hampshire, I believe, construction firm to do the job. Why are we not using Vermont workers, local Vermont workers, to get this job done? I know that there are so many of them in our state, even in Windham County, and yet we're not using them to make sure the money stays in our community. It's leaving the state. That's a problem in almost every construction type of industry. And that's a problem with nonprofits spending that money because they're spending it out of state.
But I believe it has something to do with because they're answering to state and federal. And yeah, it has to be a grant approved, like the federal state.
They would have had a bid process.
They would have.
But in the bid process, you have criteria. And part of your criteria can be, must be a Vermont company. And they didn't do that, obviously.
Not.
And they've used do construction many times.
I know. So that means that they're fine doing, it's a go-to for them.
Yeah.
It's like Rockingham continues to use
but
Stevens
they check all the
like
boxes.
I
do believe that they have to answer.
Yes, but the answer isn't must spend the money in the state of Vermont. It's not. Right. It's probably the lowest bidder.
But that comes from the state of Vermont. Yeah.
It's not always the lowest bidder, though. It isn't. It's a really, you could be the lowest bidder and have shitty references have failed
No, lowest bidder who qualifies, who has filled all the boxes.
So there's all, what are your qualifications? What are your references? How many change orders do you think you're going to put in during the process? You could be a low bidder and bid on $1 million project, bid 500, and then have so many change orders that during the course that eventually your project ends up being $2 million.
Oh, yeah, I get that.
Or do you have experience with a historical and blah, blah, blah? Like, they have to check off the boxes.
They used to give us, in the municipality of Rockingham and Bells Falls, I think it was a 5% differential if we used... So you could add 5% on to use an in-state local vendor, but that's not enough.
But I think that should have come from the village trustees or the select board when this was going out to bid. I think they should have said
it's state mandated.
We
There's
should
something about
we should have been involved in that project.
I know, but I don't know that we get any say when they get approved. We don't get any say.
If they came to the town and said we want to do this project, the select board or the village should have said we want to be on that team.
Well, let me say, as an owner of a flagging company who has to compete with New Hampshire workers, the state of Vermont has a lot more costs than the state of New Hampshire does.
Yep.
And because of that, a lot of times the next nearby state, the next over state, New Hampshire, gets a lot of the work, no matter what the construction field is, whether it's road construction or building construction, because they have fewer, they can lower their costs.
Right.
Remember, the state of Vermont, state of New Hampshire, their minimum wage is only $7.25 an hour. They pay more than that, but the minimum wage in Vermont is $12.55 right now, and so New Hampshire doesn't have to pay as much as we do.
But when you do federal, we're getting off topic. But when you
federal
do federal jobs or grants like this, it's Davis Bacon, and Davis Bacon wage is a lot.
Even for building
different.
construction, I know Davis Bacon.
Yeah.
But for building construction too.
Yeah, all of it. So, but if they're working in Vermont, they have to follow the Davis Bacon rates of Vermont, not of New Hampshire.
But that's what they're paying their employees, but not necessarily what they're charging per hour. So it's different. There's a differential.
Yeah.
I want to make sure to give Betsy her time. So I think, are we good?
So
we interrupt each other all the time.
happy. I'm happy.
So they'll interrupt me too. Don't you worry about what I want to talk about are what other towns are doing. So here's an opportunity for Rockingham. Yes, we have the Rockingham Revolving Loan Fund, and I don't remember the other.
AUD.
No, the other housing help.
It's just a subcommittee of the Rockingham Revolving Loan Fund.
Okay, which kind of goes along with what some of these other towns are doing. This is something that Rockingham could use the money for. So this was printed in the 7 days, I don't know, mid-July or beginning of July.
7 days, yeah. The newspaper.
So if anyone's seen the article, obviously you've read it. But Heinsberg, for example, they're offering grants to property owners to build ADUs, which is the accessory dwelling unit. So, for example, Bellows Falls has over 90 carriage barns / garages. And you think, even if half of those property owners could build an accessory dwelling unit, there are 90 plus new homes in this village. One of the owners, they did price out, they did a pro forma, and it didn't work. It didn't price out. So he would have put a lot more money in than he could, and he wouldn't have gotten his money back. So he just thought, well, so then Rebecca asked, well, did he apply for a revolving loan? And I don't know the answer to that, but maybe he couldn't take out a loan. So then there's, is there something that we can then offer a grant assistance? So yes, Heinsberg is doing it. I'm not sure, are they getting any help from the state for that? Montpelier, for example, so 4 accessory dwelling units were completed over COVID. 3 more are under construction because they saw the value and because the state now is allowing ADUs.
I have this. Can we stop this for a second? This member has to run to the restroom. Is it possible? Oh, one's blue.
That one's
That's red. We're still taping. I can leave anyway. I don't care.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I will do that. You continue talking. I will
Okay.
watch you in the rerun.
All right.
So you can't comment on Woodstock. That's where I'm going next.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Good, stop.
So Woodstock hired a consultant to help property owners with the process so that they weren't doing this blind, and offered incentives for property owners who were converting short-term rentals into long-term.
Wow.
So what we do not have in Rockingham, our stipulations are kind of regulations as to how Airbnbs and short-term rentals. We don't have anything.
We're working on it.
Right. But right now it's kind of, and then I'll mention, I just got an email last week from someone. So here's someone, A, that's done their homework, and B, really likes Bellas Falls, wants to serve Bellas Falls. As a property owner is looking, yes, she knows that short-term rental probably would be the thing, but she wants to make sure when she buys that she is servicing Bellas Falls and filling our needs. And I said that was very forward thinking of her. I really appreciated it. I kind of told her both. I mean, I would prefer her to have a long-term rental because I know our housing is shortage. But I said, you have to also do what's right for you. And I confirmed with Chuck Wise, the zoning administrator, and he said, we do not have any restrictions on short-term rentals. So here it is, Woodstock is offering an incentive to do that, to convert those into long-term.
They're doing that. They're doing an incentive because they want to get away from short-term rentals.
I don't think they want to remove all their short terms,
Well,
but they're
doing
realizing
an incentive.
we need some apartments
Yeah,
for the.
okay.
And because if you go to Woodstock right now, and I think it's many of these towns, I mean, coffee shops, restaurants, everyone's short-staffed, and they're realizing that is who we need to start catering to as our employees.
And so everyone knows a short-term rental is Airbnb or Vrbo. So short-term rental is for people that instead
One
of
night, 2 night, 3
renting
night.
out their apartment to somebody, for a long-term, like a long-term year leash, they've decided to just go the Airbnb route. That's what short-term rental is. Okay.
Thank
So
you.
Woodstock has an incentive to get away from that.
Yes. Now there's a Colorado company. They're paying owners to add deed restrictions. So they're going a step further. So that the deed restriction reserves the dwellings as primary residences for locals working at least 30 hours per week. So that means if this person sells, in the deed, it's restricted that it has to be rented to
And
locals.
what does this company from Colorado get? So it's just
That's a
in
good question.
Colorado. They're not a national company. They're just
Not yet.
So it sounds like to me, everyone is suffering from no employees, no local people to live in apartments that are affordable and work the coffee shop, the pizza place, the Chinese food restaurant.
It is hitting everywhere.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And so on that, in the 7 Days article, the Woodstock folks are very aware of that. And they're like, okay, this Colorado company, I don't know if they've been in contact and said, hey, would you branch to Vermont? Would you consider helping someone develop a company here to do the exact same thing?
Yeah.
We got 5 minutes.
Wow, that was fast. Okay.
So my kind of last take will be Bellas Falls needs to change their zoning for this purpose. I do believe we allow ADUs, but I also want to add we should accommodate tiny homes. We should have stipulations on trailers in the village versus efficient modulars. I don't know if anyone's seen Vermont. I am a huge fan. They're based out of, I can't think of it, Wilder,
Okay.
Vermont.
Yeah.
And it's a tiny home, like an artistic
Oh,
version
yeah.
of a tiny home. But it's kind of like a trailer, but it's not because it's not a trailer.
Yeah.
And you snap together and you can have one teeny little, they're pods, or you could stack them. And there's a place like outside of White River that did a little duplex of Vermont tiny home efficiencies. And they park underneath. They're going to have like a,
How much are they on average?
the,
You know, what, 50 grand, 65? You could buy, we
The
got
cheapest would
3
be
lots in town?
around that, yes. And I think what these were 4-bedroom,
Yeah.
double stacks with a like parking. Were gonna be, over 2, I think,
Yeah.
250.
Yeah.
But you'd own your own home. You would share the carport. Everything was included, and it's efficient.
Yeah.
You're not paying the oil prices and the propane. The like what a lot of places are going for. So those are kind of the things that I think we really need to encourage. So if you can afford a lot, so then you get some Vermonts, and you do more than one, and then you rent the other one out.
Right. So for the ADUs, the town of Rockingham is offering $50,000. So ADU stands for
Accessory dwelling unit.
and that means you can renovate your carriage barn, you can renovate your garage. So the town of Rockingham is offering $50,000 to help with that. So if anybody has need for that, like you said, there's like 19 carriage barns.
90.
90 carriage
Almost
barns.
90.
But the problem with that is Rockingham has the money, the 50 grand, to help with renovating those carriage barns.
About 3 minutes.
But then it has to pass the planning and zoning.
Which
so
is
you
part
can
of
get
the
the
zoning
money,
needs to change,
You can
yes.
get the money, but then you have to go
Right.
to the zoning board and say, hey, can I
Yeah.
convert my carriage barn
And
into an
On that note, I believe
An ADU.
they are changing. They're trying
Yeah.
to change. What I heard was we have to change the town plan,
Yep.
and we have to accommodate for the zoning changes. Then we can change zoning. We can't change the zoning until we've written this town plan,
Yeah.
and it is so close to being done. And
Okay.
everyone
So close.
has been working on this for years. So
Okay.
yeah. So there's a lot of positive things in the future.
Yep.
You covered all your housing?
I
areas?
did.
Good.
She did.
That's important. I apologize for having to split.
No, that's okay. It feels like there's a lot of information out there, and I wish, I think
Yeah.
people need to email us and say, hey, can you just email me back all the little links that I need?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we'll send
And
you all this
maybe we need to
information
start-
we discussed.
You mentioned a Facebook page. Maybe we need to start a Facebook page. Hey, this is what we talked about. Here are the links. I'm more than happy to help anyone that wants to buy a house and know
Yeah.
how to be a landlord. You have expertise and grants and everything else, and your background, Deb. So
Yeah. No.
And then
yes.
again, I'll just say, because we're associated with all
Yeah.
of these, the town, the village,
Pieces. Yeah.
BIFTA, but that's not who's here around the table, but we have those resources too. So we can,
We know a lot.
We
of
can
these,
help.
I know a lot of these pieces and the people involved in these pieces. We realize that it's an ineffective process getting it out to the public. We are trying to be that conduit so that we can help people find the things that they need. So we started up a Facebook page, which apparently is going to get more commercial these days, I'm afraid. But if we start up a Facebook page to allow more people to access us.
Yeah.
Remember, nonpchousing@gmail.com is another way to anonymously reach us with information and comments and in situations, things that are going on in your life that we may not know about. We hear, because the three of us are in different areas concerning housing, we hear a lot of different stories.
and we can share those stories without you being public at all.
without making a name. Yeah, exactly. And
So
that's
use this
intent.
platform.
We're going to do this again next month in August. This will probably come out. I'm assuming it'll come out the beginning of August, but at the end of August we'll do another filming on the same topic with more information. Now that we've sort of peeling the onion, we've taken pieces of this and we have opened it up. We want your comments. We want your feedback. We want to work to move forward on these issues because they do need change. And we are trying to find ways. I mean, I like to just take the millions of dollars and just throw it out. Like, make sure everybody has access to it. But I guess in a rational sense, the way to do that is to look at all of the requirements or hurdles that people need to get through in order to get the funding that they need. We need to find ways to get those organizations to open up to change. I mean, they've been that way for a long time. A lot of the money just sits. It doesn't get utilized. So what's the purpose of that?
I just think that when an organization like Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust comes to the town and says, hey, we want to build in your community, that is a prime opportunity to say, you can build here, but you have to support 10 families in getting them their own house.
Yeah.
You need to, as the trustee or the select board, you need to say, yeah, you can build here, but here you need to a tit for tat.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think they would do that.
How we can do that. How do you put those restrictions on them? You saw the Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust process, which people have been aggravated by from start to not
There's
even
some
finished
conflict.
yet. There's some conflict about the changes, what they said they were going to do, but what they're actually doing.
Yep.
Apparently been very cooperative with the building butters, which is great. But the finished product's going to have some say in that. And what the restrictions will be for local people who live here already, who need housing. Will they get preference over people who are out of community?
Yeah, that's a big concern of who they're moving into that building. Are they taking the dreads from another town?
Right.
and
We
bringing
would
them in
love
here?
you to house our local people.
Yep. One of the things I wanted to bring up was seeing if we could read that letter that got sent to the governor.
Yeah, I think we have to. I think so.
Next.
For everyone, there is a letter going to the governor about violence in our communities around drugs, out-of-staters, guns, abuse, and it's predominantly coming out of Springfield. But there are a large group of people that have gotten together and wrote the governor a letter to have a conversation about changing the drug and gun violence that's going on right now in some of our communities. So the governor needs to get that letter. I think that's going to him this week, and then he needs to respond. And if he doesn't respond, then the letter goes public.
Yeah.
So
by the end of next month, when we get to this.
I think we need to be the first place that talks about that letter.
Yep.
Not let it get to the paper.
Well, we're already
Have
talking about it
read
now.
Here. You're gonna read that
Next
letter
month.
here. It's gonna
We're
be
gonna
on our
put it
Facebook
right up on
page.
there.
And you're going to see what's in that letter. But we need to let the governor have the ability to respond, because we're asking the governor as locals and landlords for a meeting with him specifically.
And all of this, of course, is
So
talking
there's a
about
challenge.
housing and how it surrounds
we
housing.
have sent out a challenge to the governor. Yeah.
We didn't even talk about the difficulties that landlords are having with getting saddled by some of these nonprofit organizations with unbalanced, whether drug-addled or otherwise, into their housing. And once they get them placed, the nonprofits walk away. They're not able to provide adequate support for landlords to deal with what they wind up with. And then getting them and then moving them on if that becomes an issue because of additional problems and violence. The lack of support that comes from that, not just them, but laws, so police and fire, and going back up to our legislature, state government, and feds. I mean, that's a backup. It's like a clogged drain. You can't seem to get it unclogged.
Yep.
So we started after that hour. So are they giving us a
I'm
little
not
longer?
sure. It's
We-
still
Oh,
running.
did he
But
give
I
you
will-
5? Did he say
said 5 minutes, but it's still
Okay.
running.
so we're
So,
probably on
I'll
at
just
the end.
mention
Go ahead.
our legislature. They are asking. So have you learned what has passed through the pipeline? And I think they're eager to hear, what else do we want?
Yeah.
So again, we wrap it back to it's middle housing. It's
And
middle income housing.
It's an election year.
We're done. Okay, we need to finish. We're done. So good night. Thank you
Yes,
very much for
thank
turning
you.
up.
Thanks for joining
Joining
And
us.
see you next month.
Thanks, ladies.
See you in August.